I'm going to read a little bit about a parasite called Sacculina. I'm just going to read from the Wikipedia page for this creature, and I will put the link to this page in the description. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about this parasite and the philosophical implications of this parasite. But I'll just start by reading the Wikipedia entry. Sacculina is a genus of barnacles that is a parasitic castrator of crabs. The adults bear no resemblance to the barnacles that cover ships and piers. They are recognized as barnacles because their larval forms are like other members of the barnacle class Cirripedia. Depending on the location, the prevalence of this unusual crustacean parasite in its crab host can be as high as 50%. Life cycle. The female Sacculina larva finds a crab and walks on it until it finds a joint. It then molts into a form called a kentragon, which injects its soft body into the crab while its shell falls off. The Sacculina grows in the crab, emerging as a sac, known as an externa, on the underside of the crab's rear thorax, where the crab's eggs would be incubated, if, of course, it were a female crab. After this invasion of the Sacculina, the crab is now unable to perform the normal function of molting. This results in a loss of nutrition for the crab and impairs its overall growth. The natural ability of regrowing a severed claw that is commonly used for defense purposes is therefore lost after the infestation of Sacculina. The male Sacculina looks for a female Sacculina adult on the underside of a crab. He then implants himself into her body and starts fertilizing her eggs. The crab, male or female, then cares for the eggs as if they were its own, having been rendered infertile by the parasite. When a female Sacculina is implanted in a male crab, it will interfere with the crab's hormonal balance. This sterilizes the crab and changes its bodily layout to resemble that of a female crab by widening and flattening its abdomen, among other things. The female Sacculina then forces the crab's body to release hormones, causing it to act like a female crab, even to the point of performing female mating dances. Although all energy otherwise expended on reproduction is directed to the Sacculina, the crab develops a nurturing behavior typical of a female crab. The natural hatching process of a crab consists of the female finding a high rock and grooming its brood pouch on its abdomen and releasing the fertilized eggs in the water through a bobbing motion. The female crab stirs the water with her claw to aid the flow of water. When the hatching eggs of the Sacculina are ready to emerge from the brood pouch, the crab performs a similar process. The crab shoots them out through pulses, creating a large cloud of parasites. The crab then uses the familiar technique of stirring the water to aid in the flow. So I find this parasite very interesting And in some ways it's a very good metaphor for some other kinds of parasites. Your body and the body of a crab is an amazing machine. It's a reproduction machine. It can go around the environment, extracting energy from the environment and using it to do work. The ultimate goal of which, biologically at least, is reproduction. So you, like every other life form, are a reproduction machine. Now, this reproduction machine can be taken over by another reproduction machine and used to reproduce the other machine. And this parasite is a good example of that kind of body-snatching reproduction machine. It not only invades the host body, it takes over control of its behavior by releasing hormones to change the behavior of the crab, by destroying some internal structures, but mainly it takes over the mind of the crab, or the brain of the crab. Whether a crab has a mind, well, it probably doesn't. Crabs are fairly simple. But there are parasites that infect mammals, including human beings, that have effects on the brain, that change the behavior in a way that makes it spread the infecting organism. One example is rabies. Rabies infects the brain and the salivary glands. It causes a pattern of behavior in which the infected animal runs around chaotically, biting other animals. This behavior spreads rabies. Another example is toxoplasmosis, which changes the behavior of rodents to make them more likely to be eaten by cats and other predators. But the main function of this behavior is to get eaten by a cat. The cat is one of the hosts of toxoplasmosis, and cats spread the spores in their feces. Then rodents become infected by the spores, develop this mental illness, which makes them unafraid of the things they were previously afraid of. It makes them act in ways that are not fearful. It makes them attracted to things that they were formerly repulsed by, such as cat urine. And it makes them abandon their normally cautious behavior of running along the edges of things. So they scamper around out in the open. Well, this behavior makes them easy targets for cats. Cats then eat the rodents. The parasite transfers to the cat, and the cycle continues. And that pathogen, I'm not sure exactly what it is. I don't think it's a virus. I should look it up, what toxoplasmosis is caused by. I think it's a single-celled organism, but not bacteria or viral. Toxoplasma gondii, or gondii, Toxoplasma gondii, is an obligate intracellular parasitic protozoan. There you go. So it looks like a little kind of tiny little wormy thing, or amoeboid thing, but it's more like a little wormy thing than an amoeboid thing. It says here also that 30 to 50% of the global human population has been exposed to and may be chronically infected with Toxoplasma gondii. It depends on where you live. Now, when humans get infected by this parasite, we are analogous to the rodent phase of its life cycle. It infects the human brain. Now, think about this. This parasite probably doesn't have as much of an effect on human beings than it does on its natural host, rodents, because human beings are kind of a dead end for the parasite, right? We don't usually get eaten by cats. However, it might affect our behavior in a similar way, because the parasite living in a human brain might have a similar effect on human behavior. It might make you attracted to something that you would ordinarily be repulsed by, or it might make you lose your fear. They're still studying whether or not this parasite has a major impact on human behavior. But it might. And there might be other parasites out there that we don't know about yet. And this makes me think about the theory, which is very speculative, but it's still an interesting theory, that homosexuality might be caused by an infection, by a parasite, just based on the epidemiology of it. Now, it's very difficult in this day and age to do epidemiological studies of homosexuality, because it's a very touchy political subject. But what if it turns out that things like homosexuality, and I'm thinking about homosexuality in males specifically, what if it turns out that something like homosexuality is caused by a disease that infects your brain and reverses your sexual attraction in a similar way to the way that the Toxoplasma parasite reverses the fear response in rodents, kind of flips around what they like, right? All of a sudden, instead of being afraid of cat urine, they find it attractive. Instead of being afraid of running around out in the open, they want to scamper around out in the open. Well, homosexuality is a very strange thing that we don't really understand. And I'm not claiming that it is caused by a disease. I don't know. But what if it is? What if we discover that, homosexuality is caused by a disease? Let's just say, for the sake of argument, that it's caused by gut flora, by something that lives in your intestines and propagates from one intestine to another. You can see how that could evolve, right? See, homosexual preference is actually very rare in nature. A lot of these homosexual advocates have tried to claim that homosexuality is seen everywhere in nature. It's very common. It's true that behaviors like mounting are very common in mammals as a way of showing dominance. But that's not really homosexual behavior. Homosexual behavior would be where a male doesn't mate with a female, but mates preferentially with males. So that's rare because it's not adaptive, right? And sometimes when organisms do maladaptive things, it's because they have been taken over by a body-snatching parasite. And you can see how that could evolve, right? Like, let's say it evolved among sheep. This behavior has been observed in male sheep, that some of them prefer to mount other males. Now, let's just say, for the sake of argument, that this disease emerged in male sheep because that's how it propagated itself from one intestine to another, right? By getting the males to go around mounting each other, which they would be doing anyway to display dominance, but just by getting them to prefer that and to, get really into it and transfer fecal material around, that's an example of how a parasite might use the host to spread itself. Now, again, I'm not saying that this is what causes homosexuality. I'm not claiming that. I don't think we know yet what causes homosexuality. It's one of those mysteries like schizophrenia. Well, like a lot of things, there's still a lot of things that we don't understand about human behavior and variations on it. But what if that were the case? What if it were the case that homosexuals are infected by a microorganism that is flipping around their sexuality? In the same way that toxoplasmosis flips around the fear response in rodents, and in the same way that Sacculina causes male crabs to act like females and spread the Sacculina parasite. Brood the eggs of the Sacculina and then go up on a rock and do a little dance and spread out the little baby parasites. If a crab had consciousness at the moment it's doing its little dance up on the rock, releasing its parasite brood, it would feel like it was fulfilling its life's purpose. It would feel like a female crab when she releases her eggs into the water. That she is doing this amazing thing. This is the culmination of her existence. It would feel like it was doing the right thing. It would celebrate what it was doing. And then it shuffles off the rock and it goes somewhere to die. But the point is that if you take over the emotions, the mechanisms that drive behavior, then an illness might not feel like an illness to the infected host. And in a sense, the host begins to identify with the parasite. If a parasite has taken over your brain, who are you? Are you you? Are you an avatar for your genes, which is what you were, born to be, in a sense? You see, the form of your brain was selected to make you into a reproduction machine, right? To make you good at reproducing your genes. But if that mechanism is taken over by something else, and, it short circuits a few wires inside that mechanism and changes it into a mechanism for reproducing its own genes, and you are the mechanism that has been short-circuited, what are you? Who are you? What do you identify as? I just think these are interesting questions. If we found out that homosexuality or transsexuality was caused by an infection, then people with those identities would be faced with this kind of, they'd be faced with this deep philosophical question of who they are. You see, who you are has a lot to do with what you want, with where you are going and what you are doing. If you were homosexual and you knew that your homosexuality was the effect of a disease, and let's say that it could be reversed, let's say that it could be fixed, would you want it to be fixed? And if you didn't want it to be fixed, well, who's doing the wanting? Is it you? Or is it the parasite? I'm not giving any answers here because there aren't any simple answers to these questions. I'm just trying to make people think about identity. There is another kind of parasite that is analogous to Sacculina that I think is very important in the modern world, and that is a mimetic parasite, or what we often call an ideology. Now, the term ideology is sort of vague. It's just really an unfortunate term. Religion might be better. A religion is a mimetic package. Now, most religions, though, most religions don't turn people away from reproducing their own genes, but some do. Some turn people away from reproducing their genes and toward other behaviors. Behaviors that, coincidentally, happen to propagate the memes. Humanism, this emerging religion of humanism, which is kind of a degenerate, godless form of Christianity, is propagating like a parasite. It's hopping from host to host. It doesn't help the host reproduce. Instead, it renders the host either infertile or gives the host very low fertility. It creates the conditions under which entire societies seek to destroy themselves, to bring in other people to be infected. If Western civilization gets fully paused by humanism, then it becomes nothing but a vehicle for spreading these memes. Anyway, it's just something to think about. If you are infected by a mimetic parasite, see, human beings have these complex brains, and this creates, on the one hand, this gives us some advantages, right? More intelligence, more ability to think, more ability to plan, more ability to design the environment, etc., and especially more ability to interact socially and create complex societies, right? So it allows us to use technology and complex societies to solve problems. So the big brain is very useful, but it comes at a certain cost, which is that, first of all, it's expensive to maintain, and you have to get that big head through a vagina, which is difficult. And then you have to, spend 15 to 20 years taking care of the child before he or she is capable of, living in the world. But setting aside the energetic costs of the large brain, there is another cost that comes with the large brain, which is that with all of this behavioral plasticity, with all of this use of ideas that are acquired after birth and even after childhood to generate behavior, this creates the opportunity for mimetic diseases, for mimetic parasites to emerge and spread. Right, for systems of ideas that propagate themselves to come into existence and to take over human minds and use human bodies to propagate themselves. This hasn't really existed before because most animals don't communicate very much information. They don't have these really complex systems of ideas and behavior patterns and such that we call culture. There is some culture among mammals. They do learn things by imitation, and they pass things on in that way. But most imitation is done child to parent. So it's very difficult for an antagonistic meme system to evolve when the memes are transferred from parents to children. And because other animals, except maybe whales, don't have the ability to communicate complex ideas, there is a real limitation to the complexity of any mimetic system that can propagate through other animal species. But human beings have this incredibly rich thing we call culture, this enormous pool of ideas, of memes that we learn by imitation, by indoctrination, and also by sometimes by persuasion, etc. So we have created this very complex information system called culture. And in any information system, you can get self-propagating cycles, right? You can get cycles going. That's how life got going. Little information systems of chemicals, loops emerged in little systems of replicating chemicals, autocatalytic sets. That was the origin of life. Autocatalytic sets of molecules. Well, we now have autocatalytic sets of ideas that can propagate themselves from brain to brain. And if you get infected by one of these things, by a mimetic parasite, the mimetic parasite will define your values. What you care about will be the values of the parasite. What drives your actions will be the values of the parasite. So again, the question arises, who are you? What are you? On whose behalf are you acting? What are you reproducing? See, in a sense, we can't do anything else other than reproduce information. I mean, we do all kinds of things, but they're always related to some kind of reproductive function. They may not be fulfilling it very well. We may be like caterpillars walking on the rim of a bowl. A long time ago, I made a video called Caterpillars and Philosophy. And I talked about how if you put a caterpillar on the rim of a bowl, it will walk around and around and around and around in an endless loop because caterpillars didn't evolve to walk on bowls. They evolved to walk on branches. And branches aren't circular. And to a caterpillar, the rim of a bowl feels like a branch. So it responds to the bowl as if it were a branch. And a lot of what we do is stuff like that. A lot of what human beings do in the modern world is, kind of wander around and around and around in loops that we have created for ourselves that mimic aspects of our ancestral environment, but aren't really doing the same thing. Casual sex is a perfect example. But so are lots of things. The pursuit of money for its own sake, The pursuit of social approval online. You could argue what I'm doing right now is a kind of pointless, futile circling of a bowl. Again, I'm not making this video to propose answers. I have some answers, but that's not the purpose of this video. I'm just trying to make you think about your identity, what it is, and where it comes from, and how identity can be hijacked by parasites. All right, that was longer than I thought it was going to be. Hopefully that made you ponder your existence. Thanks for listening.